The King. The King. Queen Camilla, the Prince and Princess of Wales, and the other members of the royal family. The royal family.
My late Lord Mayor.
Your Grace, my Lord Chancellor, Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, Lord Speaker, Your Excellencies, my Lords, fellow aldermen, sheriffs, Chief Commoner, honored guests all. My sheriffs, Alderwoman Dame Susan Langley, and Alderman Bronick Masayada, and I would like to wish you a very warm welcome to the Lord Mayor's Banquet. The City of London is the world's oldest democratic workers' and residents' cooperative. And it is an honor to be standing before you as the 695th Lord Mayor of the City of London. I first arrived in London in 1979. It entranced me, and 44 years later, it's the only home my wonderful wife, the new Lady Mayoress, Elizabeth, and I desire. And the magic of our city was on full display on Saturday at the Lord Mayor's show, and I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to such a special day. Now, London is the best city in the world, but British humor can be a little bruising. The other day, I visited Russell, our city tailor, in Bow Lane, to be kitted out for my mayoralty. We exchanged some pleasantries, and then he turned to me and asked, with a very neutral expression, "And would Sir care for a little extra banqueting room?" Now, I must sincerely praise my predecessor, the 694th Lord Mayor, Nicholas Lyons, who's here with us tonight. Nick, you have been positive, passionate, and persistent in the delivery of your theme, Financing Our Future, supported by your marvelous wife, Felicity. You worked incredibly hard alongside the Chancellor to bring the chief executives of the UK's largest defined contribution pension schemes together to sign the Mansion House Compact, a new agreement to improve people's pension returns and ensure cutting-edge firms can stay and scale in the UK. And another highlight came when you led us into the new Carolean era. You did us all so proud at the coronation, and as the King and Queen's recent visit to Mansion House demonstrates, set the tone for the city's relationship with the Crown in this new chapter. My friends, while there's much to admire, and that I do admire about the late Lord Mayor, I'm not a fan of those darn nun jokes. Yeah, that's one habit I want to break. And I promise that in this mayoralty, there'll be zero, none. Now you all know my theme, Connect to Prosper, celebrating the knowledge miles of our Square Mile, the world's coffee house. In centuries past, academics, artists, and intellectuals met in London's coffee houses to discuss big ideas and solve the issues of the day. One of those penny universities became the London Stock Exchange, another Lloyd's of London. Today, the city is home to 40 learned societies, 70 higher education institutions, 130 research institutes, and over 24,000 businesses with more than 300 languages spoken. I think of the Square Mile as the world's coffee house, a place where thought leaders develop solutions to improve people's lives. Built on the rule of law, with an enabling regulatory environment, access to incredible talents and skills, and unparalleled global connections. A place, in short, where people connect to prosper. If this sounds too theoretical, let me give you an example from outer space. We need to invest in space observation and positioning to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and we need space for our defense and our economic prosperity. Yet mankind's 7,000 working satellites risk catastrophic damage from more than 1 million pieces of space junk. It's an issue that is close to His Majesty's heart, as he recently launched the Astra Carta framework to encourage sustainability across the space industry, which is modeled on the Magna Carta. So, enter the space junk removal company, Astroscale in Japan. Connected by their Japanese bank to the City of London, and with the support of our space regulator, Astroscale chose the UK for the control center from which its first commercial mission will be launched. Why? Because we are a nation built on the rule of law, with an enabling regulatory environment access to incredible talent and skills, and unparalleled global connections. Astroscale recognized that the UK is the place to come, to connect, to prosper. Now, those who know me know that I believe quantity has a quality all of its own. And Connect to Prosper will be delivered via a huge quantity of friends and colleagues with an abundance of high-quality initiatives and events. The city is rightly known for its leadership in financial and professional services, but we're also the biggest center for tech in the country, with a workforce that includes scientists, engineers, and technicians, as well as bankers, insurers, and lawyers. And we are shining a spotlight on these and other areas of strength, what I think of as the square miles, knowledge miles. We're doing this by hosting an online lecture series with expert talks from city figures on topics from artificial intelligence to fusion to quantum. Over the summer, the Lord Mayor's Appeal and its charity partner, MQ Mental Health Research, along with Oxford University and the Wellcome Trust, launched Galanos, an open access repository of scientific papers it's hoped will speed up mental health research globally by 2 to 3 years. I know AI is a priority for your government, Prime Minister. In June, we launched the 695th Lord Mayor's Ethical AI Initiative, a scheme delivering ethics courses for those working in AI, starting with over 100 registered financial services firms. We'll also encourage thought leaders to make new connections through in-person networking sessions at Mansion House, what we've called coffee colloquies, each of which will align with a sustainable development goal. And in a world where 1 in 3 women are subjected to violence, it is critical vulnerable people are connected with the resources they need. So Elizabeth is supporting the work of the City of London Crime Prevention Association to prevent violence against women and girls, which has just relaunched a taxi marshalling scheme to get women home safely. I will also be working closely with our policy chairman, Chris Hayward, to deliver the city's vision for economic growth, a roadmap to ensure our financial and professional services sector can keep driving economic growth and remain internationally competitive in the years to come. The common theme for all these initiatives? Seeing how we can prosper through the power of positive connections. Nowhere is collaboration more important than in the conversation on climate change. So Chris and I will be representing the city at COP28 in the United Arab Emirates in a few weeks' time. COP28 will be my first international visit across a busy 100 days of overseas travel. And I hope my trips will reinforce the idea with our friends and neighbors that when we connect, we will prosper. I'll visit the US, India, China, and Japan, and more European destinations than in recent years, reflecting our closer relations with the EU. And my schedule will incorporate trips to the many nations that have a Mainelli link, and even a few without. Now, on my travels, I'm sure I'll tell a few of my favorite kind of jokes. Walk into a bar jokes. A British economist, Irish computer programmer, Italian accountant, and American scientist walk into a bar. The barman says, "Michael, let me get you a drink." Finally, we're also making time for fun this year with science experiments that demonstrate the city's inventiveness, special events on the Thames, and a Bavarian ball in recognition of our family's heritage. It's all part of Connect to Prosper, celebrating the knowledge miles of our square mile, the world's coffee house. Prime Minister, I know you will be talking about the situation in the Middle East, which has left so many of us in the city feeling helpless. In this context, we must lean on one another for support and remind ourselves of the things we have in common. So we are marking Interfaith Week with an event at St. Ethelburga's Center for Reconciliation and Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, Elizabeth and I both lost our fathers last year. My father was very enamored with an expression that he gave each of his children, a plaque bearing the phrase, "A ship in the harbor is safe, but that's not what ships are built for." So indulge me as I share a few words from Sir Francis Drake. Disturb us, Lord, when we are too well pleased with ourselves, when our dreams have come true because we have dreamed too little, when we arrive safely because we sailed too close to the shore. Disturb us, Lord, to dare more boldly where, losing sight of land, we shall find the stars. My friends, let us venture on wider seas, push into the future with strength, courage, hope, and love, and connect to prosper. Thank you. Now, could government ministers please remain seated and everyone else stand and join me in a toast. His Majesty's Ministers. His Majesty's Ministers.
Pray silence for the Prime Minister.
My Lord Mayor, ladies, gentlemen, these are deeply challenging times for our world. Events far beyond our shores echo here at home, with implications for our security, our economy, and our very social fabric. It falls to us to do everything we can to shape these events. And so we've delivered one of the most significant years for British foreign policy in recent times. That's due in no small part to James Cleverly, and I know that he'll bring the same vigour to the equally vital job of Home Secretary. And I'm pleased to have appointed a new Foreign Secretary who will build on everything that we have achieved in the last year. A year in which we've gone further than ever to support Ukraine, as the first G7 country to move on sending tanks, first to send long-range weapons, and the first to step up on training pilots. In the last few weeks, I've traveled to Cyprus, Jerusalem, Riyadh and Cairo to respond to the crisis in the Middle East. And I'm in constant contact with leaders across the nations. Since we've gathered last here a year ago, we've secured the Windsor Framework with the EU, launched the AUKUS partnership with the US and Australia, building one of the most advanced submarines that the world has ever known, signed the Hiroshima Accord with Japan and the Atlantic Declaration with the United States, secured membership of the CPTPP, which will drive global growth, delivered returns agreements to tackle illegal migration, an approach now being followed by many others, and brokered the first ever international statement on the risks of artificial intelligence, including the US and China, something many thought impossible. But these treaties and alliances speak to something deeper. Our willingness to act, to shape the world, not be shaped by it, wherever there's a challenge, wherever there's a threat, wherever we can promote peace and security. That's why we've deployed troops to Kosovo, supporting stability in the Balkans. 20,000 servicemen and women are on their way to protect NATO's eastern flank and the High North. Royal Navy vessels are in the Middle East to deter further escalation. And vital humanitarian aid is reaching civilians in Gaza and across the Horn of Africa, funded by the British people. This is who we are. The difference we make every single day across the world should make each and every one of us here tonight enormously proud of what this country does. We're hard-headed about our interests and our security. But Britain's realism has always had values, and this is a moment for moral clarity. My Lord Mayor, the past is trying to stop the future being born. What motivated Hamas to launch their horrific attack on Israel? It wasn't just hatred. It was also their fear that a new Middle East was being born, one that would see Israel normalizing relations with its neighbors, which gave hope for a better, more secure, more prosperous way forward. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? Because Putin feared the emergence of a modern, reforming, thriving democracy on his doorstep and wanted to pull it back into some imperialist fantasy of the past. So we must keep alive the promise of a better future, bolster those striving for it, and stand up for the innocents who Russia see as targets and Hamas see as human shields. I recall those lines from Yeats. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. That's what our adversaries believe. So we will outmatch them with our conviction and intensity. We must and we will prove them wrong. And let me set out what that means in Ukraine, in how we help the most vulnerable around the world, and first in the Middle East, a region whose tragedy and heartbreak hang heavy on us all. In Israel, I met the families of British victims. I sat with them, held their hands, and saw the profound pain in their eyes. I heard the existential fear that the Israelis are feeling. Their country was founded to ensure that what happened in the Holocaust could never happen again. Hamas poses a fundamental challenge to that idea. Hamas have stated clearly, we will repeat the October 7th attack time and time again until Israel is annihilated. Time and time again. Last week was the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht. And as we see hatred rising, we all have a responsibility to meet the promise of the words that in recent days have lit up the Brandenburg Gate. Never again is now. So Israel must be able to defend itself against terror, restore its security, and bring the hostages home. But there are many things that Israel must do as part of its response. We've been clear that they must act within international law. They must take all measures to protect innocent civilians, including at hospitals, stop extremist violence in the West Bank, and allow more aid into Gaza. Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, described to me the terrible suffering of the Palestinian people. Too many civilians are losing their lives. That's why I've doubled our aid to Gaza and why we continue to press, both at the United Nations and directly with Israel, for unhindered humanitarian access and urgent and substantive humanitarian pauses. We want aid coming in by land, air, and sea, and we're ready to use our bases in Cyprus as a staging post. Alleviating the suffering is our most foremost priority, but we need to do more to create a new political horizon. We must unite around the only answer that can come close to creating peace in these troubled lands, the only answer that can acknowledge the history and hurt of both peoples, the only answer that can allow a new future to be born, and that is a two-state solution. The United Kingdom wrote the original UN resolutions setting this out. We've argued the case for decades, but now we must help make it a reality. So to the UK's friends across the region, like Jordan, Egypt, the UAE and Saudi Arabia, who support normalization and peaceful coexistence, and to our communities here at home, I pledge to redouble our efforts to this end. That means providing the serious, practical, and enduring support needed to bolster the Palestinian Authority, because they are the best route to sweep away the terrible scourge of Hamas and all it has wrought. As hard as it may be, no matter the obstacles, we must put the region on a path to genuine peace. Now, we're also supporting a better future for Ukraine. And let me tell you this, the last year has shown that Russia cannot win. They tried to blockade Ukrainian shipping routes, and they failed. Ukraine has pushed back the Black Sea Fleet and made Crimea a vulnerability for Putin rather than a strength. Russia is mounting its third wave of attacks on Avdiivka, and again they continue to fail at horrendous cost. Since their invasion, Russia has suffered over 250,000 casualties. Half the territory they initially seized has been taken back, and Putin has faced a more united response than he ever imagined. He ensured defense spending is rising across Europe, led by the UK. He's fast-tracked Finland into NATO with Sweden close behind. And he's seen an armed rebellion marching on Moscow. It's a self-inflicted strategic calamity. Putin's vain hope is that we lose patience. But friends, we never will. Instead, we're providing more air defense to protect Ukraine's cities and infrastructure, more help for the long, hard winter, and we're going further. In February, at the Munich Security Conference, I argued then that Ukraine needs long-term security assurances. And in July, allies delivered. Following the NATO summit, over 30 other leaders joined us in agreeing to put those assurances in place. Together, we'll strengthen Ukraine's defense and boost their economy so that they can thrive even while they fight to regain their territory. And to do so, Ukraine needs the City of London. It needs all of you. It needs expertise and capital and war risk insurance to support trade and investment and keep the ships going. And I know that you will deliver. And so will the government, building Ukraine's navy, training their pilots, and training their soldiers. We've now trained over 50,000 Ukrainian troops. President Zelensky and I went to meet some of them earlier this year. And I recall sitting together on a Chinook flying to the south coast. Over the din of the rotors, Vlodder and I chatted and shared family photos. It was a moment of normality in an abnormal setting and a reminder of what unites us. In the face of aggression, we will always protect our values and all we hold dear. We will stand with Ukraine until they prevail. And finally, to deliver a better future, we must lead not just with our strength, but with our compassion, helping the poorest and tackling global problems. So while Russia seeks to starve the world by choking off food supplies, we're helping Ukraine get food to those who need it most. And next week, we're hosting an international conference on alleviating global hunger. While some load the poorest nations with unsustainable debt, the UK is driving fundamental reform of development finance, including a capital increase for the World Bank. While some talk down our record on climate, we're actually a world leader, cutting emissions faster than any other G7 country. And with $2 billion recently announced for the Green Climate Fund, I've delivered the biggest single international climate pledge the UK has ever made. We're also a leading donor to global health initiatives, helping vaccinate over 1 billion children, saving millions and millions of lives. But we bring more to the table than just our funding. We also bring our expertise. Right now, the world's first ever malaria vaccine is being rolled out across Africa, with the second one following soon. It has dramatically cut early child mortality. And where were both of those vaccines developed? Right here in the UK. We don't talk about it enough, but every day Britain is out there helping the poorest, the most vulnerable, saving and transforming lives. So I say it again, this is who we are, and it should make us all proud. My Lord Mayor, when conflicts overseas create division at home, it's more important than ever that we preserve the values we hold dear. Tolerance, free speech, the rule of law, respect for our history. We'll protect all communities from violence and intimidation and prevent people being drawn into radicalization. In these dangerous times, we're not just defending a better vision of the future against those who would destroy it, we're marshalling our expertise, our people, and our alliances to bring that future into being. We will continue to stand up for what is right. We will stand with our allies and the most vulnerable wherever they may be. We'll show that the best are full of conviction and that our values will prevail. Thank you.